We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, let me, since I haven't spoken on this, get a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. Which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. This is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives.
Good. Here we go, family. Good afternoon on the West Coast. Good afternoon in the mountain. Good afternoon in the central. Good afternoon on the East Coast. This is going to be fun, family, as I toggle between sounding like Oscar the Grouch and Michelle, okay? Forgive my voice, family. I don't know what I'm overcoming. As I explained to you guys on Saturday, it's some type of COVID, I don't know, combination thereof. I sound worse than I feel. So if the sounds of Michelle don't turn you off, if the sounds of Oscar the Grouch don't turn you off, hi Trey, I see you, fam. Then welcome to the live, because what? The show must go on. Yes, it must. I will rest when I am dead, okay? Hi, Brian. I see you, family. I want to welcome you one and all to the live. This is going to be rich. I've got my tea on standby just to try and keep what little vocals I have left warm. But yeah, we have a lot to unpack because I see that the title of my show has got, thank you, Eric, I see you, fam. My title has got Brandon Hill, I see you, fam. My title has pissed y'all all the way off, and it is rich. Oh my goodness, I am so excited that you guys are turning up over the title of my show. Thank you, Miss Lady K Love. I don't feel bad. I just sound like Michelle A. So I hope y'all can endure it. We love Michelle A. I have never spoken at this pitch in my life. I maybe should go and try to produce a few records and make some money. But like I always tell y'all, the movement takes catnaps. We have a whole lineage to save, and the puckery is real. It is live and in living color how these white folks and these immigrants are co-opting all of our advances for their own advancement. Okay, family? So we've got a lot to unpack, and let's dig right into it. Right now, I have Black Diamond, one of the hostesses who had me and Shirley Huzar on as a guest this Saturday past. Now, she can't come on live at this time, but we have her on standby on the Bluetooth because she's got so much knowledge, family. And she's really here to help me because my voice is kind of strained and no one can say or intimate this history in the way that Black Diamond can, because she's well read and she's been fighting for reparations since around 2004. So she ain't new to this. She is true to this. Okay, family? And so I'm going to introduce her. Miss Black Diamond, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. And thank you for bringing me on to your show.
I thank you so much. It is an honor and a privilege to have you as a first-time guest and co-host on my show, The Reparationist Perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is an honor for me.
Well, this is so important, family, because we talk often about the weaponization of immigration against freedmen to make us permanent bottom caste in this country. And all of this started way back when. And as we celebrate and commemorate the legacy of the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it becomes imperative for the family to understand that he was absolutely against mass immigration. He understood its impact in suppressing American wages and in costing American jobs. So let me just start right there. I want you to please share with me and my audience your perspective on how Dr. King was absolutely against mass immigration. Can you speak to that at all?
I can speak to it. So let's think about Dr. King and when he was assassinated. Most of us, a lot of us, I should say, attribute his assassination to his activism as it relates to us and our civil rights. Right? A lot of us hopefully at this point, because of our education. Now, a lot of us understand that Dr. King was not assassinated primarily because of his activism as it relates to the freedmen and our civil rights. He was assassinated because he had began to pivot and to really push economic inclusion. And he did something that most people really missed in that economic inclusion. When he was assassinated in Memphis, he wasn't there just per se for freedmen. He was there for labor rights. And he knew that he needed to pivot and get another crowd, another group of people who were also being oppressed as a result of mass integration at that time. And that other group was a silent group that we never talked about, that we very rarely discussed, and yet they are still here, and they have reared their ugly heads yet again for us as it relates to the insurrection that just took place recently when it came to Donald Trump refusing to be removed from the White House. So we think about, okay, so what does that mean? And talk to us about why you're saying this. I'm saying this because Dr. Martin Luther King realized that the poor whites, without them understanding it at that time, were actually going to be our pawns and our allies. So what Dr. Martin Luther King did was, when he came to Memphis, his goal was to deal with this labor issue and the union issue, of course, absolutely, when it came to us. But he understood how immigration was a major issue for the oppression of these rural poor whites down in the South. Now, if we go back and we look at some of our history, one thing that America has always realized was, when poor whites identify with poor blacks because they are being oppressed at the same level, that is a red zone. At red fire, that red buzzer goes off. So at that point, what Martin Luther King was doing was what we did in our past history as it relates to our ancestors. Our ancestors, when these peasant Europeans came over and they were classified as indentured servants, although they were enslaved or what have you, they had a time frame on their enslavement, yes, but they shared something in common with us, and that was oppression, and that was enslavement. Rather, theirs was called indentured servants or not, it was still a form of servitude. Those poor whites, those peasants of Europe, when they came here, they needed to find some type of allies, and it was us. And because it was us, the Southern dominant class realized oh crap moment. Oh crap! If these poor peasants, these poor white peasants, start to talk to these enslaved people, they are now forming an allyship, and it's a danger to us. So what did they do? They pivoted, and they still kept those indentured servants, right? They still kept them as servants, but they elevated them just enough above us so that they would now have authority and feel like they were someone over us, so that they could ultimately kill that what was happening alliance between us, because they knew that it was a threat. When they did that, what happened? They created us, not really created us, but they made sure and they ensured our placement at the bottom of this totem pole when it came to having any type of alliance. We couldn't align with the Native Americans, and now we could no longer find any common ground with these poor whites. And so we were, again, stuck in enslavement. Now, as we move forward in our timing, and we get to Martin Luther King, he did what was necessary as far as for us when it came to the civil rights. But here's something that we need to understand, that Martin Luther King, again, was there in Memphis to deal with the labor issues and with the union when it came to us. But he was also advocating for them, all right? What he did was, when he was murdered, at that point, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, before he was murdered, they were proposing to have the Poor People's Conference. or the Poor People's Campaign, which was their conference. Now, what we for those of us who don't know what the Poor People's Campaign was about, it wasn't just about us. And it was made up of millions and millions of other people, groups of people, right, that were fighting for the same thing, economic inclusion. Now, if we go back and we study our history with him, with Dr. King as it relates to that conference, right, in his last address, in his concluding address with that conference, Dr. King said he announced a shift from reform to revolution. That is a key thing that we need to pay attention to. Why did he say we're going to shift from reform and move into revolution? That was of paramount interest to us. I'm going to explain to you why that's important in just a couple of seconds. Not only did he say that, but I want everyone to understand this, that not only did he say that, but his very last line, he said, and I quote, "We have moved from the era of civil rights to an era of human rights." Of human rights, not civil rights, but human rights. Now, human rights denotes revolution. Civil rights denotes reform. Now let's understand what reform is as it relates to revolution. Let's contrast it. Reform implies changes that are made to an existing structure, meaning we're just trying to fit in. We're trying to easily fit in and not really cause major problems. That was our civil liberties. That was us trying to integrate. That was us playing the respectable Negro roles, just so that society could supposedly accept us better, see us as a full-fledged human being. But now, let's now contrast that to revolution. Revolution completely overthrows the existing system and adopts drastic measures. The revolution aims to establish a new system. It is an act of resistance that overthrows the status quo, and especially when it comes to the government, it overthrows it by force. So understand that when Dr. Martin Luther King said that we are now moving away from an era of civil rights, and we are moving into an era of human rights. When we go back and look at the Poor People's Campaign, he had amassed an army that was not just Freedman. He had amassed an army of people that were of the dominant society, that were experiencing the same issues we were experiencing, that had now recognized we need the freedmen, because we are experiencing what they are experiencing, and we need to stop the integration of immigrants because it is oppressing us. They were receiving the same rate of pay at one time that we were receiving. Now, if we don't understand how immigration truly affects us, I took the liberty to just pull up just a little bit about the immigration during that time and a specific program that was issued or that was created during the time of the civil rights era.
Okay.
And that's, well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay, sis. I just want to give you a chance to collect what you're about to transition into while I share a little segment on what MLK said about immigration. Now, I pray I don't get a strike. I know my channel is being shadow banned. So if you will please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications, I greatly appreciate you for that, family. I do know that Facebook was messing with the post that I put up of today's show. And so I had to repost it as the YouTube link. So I see you, family. Thank you so much for joining the live. Yes, and so I reposted the YouTube link in Facebook so that you guys wouldn't be denied an opportunity to see it. So please share it. But I'm going to share with you in bits and pieces Yes, Brian says these are rich insights. And Reps says, thank you so much, Black Diamond and Angela, for this knowledge. And Brian also compares this to what happened to Chairman Fred Hampton. Okay, so we're going to stick a pin in that. Y'all might as well get your libations and relax, because we're going to finish when we finish. I'm not going to promise no hour. I want us to take our time, because white folks and immigrants are really working to change history and to wipe us completely out of it. And so I'm going to keep it PG, because I really want you to share this with your young people. They don't know this rich history here. Lots of folks, because of the way Martin Luther King Jr. has been whitewashed, don't understand the revolutionary and the strategist that was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I'm hopeful between the time we spend together and some of these sound bites, I pray and cross fingers and thumbs, since I put up a copyright disclaimer, that ScrewTube won't shut me down. But they usually come for me, so I have to do it in bits, and I beg your patience. Buckle up, buttercups. This is going to be a rich ride. Thank you for joining. Stand by while I cue up the tape. Stand by, Black Diamond. You'll be able to hear it. I'm not going to mute you. Okay, let's get it. Hi, Shanna. Okay, hold on, guys. Let's share the screen. I beg your patience with my voice, but the show must go on. Okay, let's try and see if this is the one that I want to share. Where's that timestamp? Yep, this is it. Okay, listen up, buttercups.
Idea of what they want the Negro to be in America?
Well, it depends on the level that we are talking here, because I think you have to make a distinction between the people who are genuinely and absolutely committed in the white community on the question of racial equality. And I must confess that I think they're a very small minority. I think the vast majority of white Americans will go but so far. It's a kind of installment plan for equality, and they are always looking for an excuse to go but so far.
Why are they looking for the excuse? What is it about the Negro? I mean, every other group that came as an immigrant somehow, not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes are black?
That's a part of it, and that grows out of something else. You can't thingify anything without depersonalizing that something. If you use something as a means to an end, at that moment you make it a thing and you depersonalize it. The fact is that the Negro was a slave in this country for 244 years. That was a willful thing that was done. The Negro was brought here and changed, treated in very inhuman fashion. And this led to the thingification of the Negro. So he was not looked upon as a person. He was not looked upon as a human being with the same status and worth as other human beings. And the other thing is that human beings cannot continue to do wrong without eventually rationalizing that wrong. So slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma, and that can never be overlooked. So I think these things are absolutely necessary. The other thing is that America freed the slaves in 1863, through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
Apart from wanting to...
Black Diamond, would you like to chime in now?
I'm sorry, I was talking and I was on mute. So,
yes.
One thing I want to say about, before we even start talking about the clip, and we recognize that back then we didn't have the internet. The first thing we have to do is, as I believe that we have to do as a group, is to really, really recognize that when we allow ourselves to embrace the terminology Black, it's detrimental to us. We should allow every other immigrant to embrace that term Black, and we should never fight against it. We should stand on our square, stand on the shoulders of our ancestors and in their shoes, and hold strong and true to the identity of Freedman.
Let me let you pause right there. I wanted to interject, if I may. Can you please unpack how this is a trick of the white man to flatten Blackness so that we will never understand that Freedman is tied to our justice claim? We've gone from being called mulatto to the colored to Negro, which is on my birth certificate, to Black, to African American. As you are contextualizing what you're about to share, I know that I pray that that's the direction you're leading to, as to why we should not fight over these terms that are being weaponized against us to make us deny the truth of who we really are, because that is what constitutionally ties us to our justice claim.
Absolutely, it does, and it's important that we really, really unpack that, because it is another way of them being able to weaponize Black immigration against us. So we have to first understand something, that the reason why it's of paramount interest to us for us to take the time and really understand that we need to stop the battle of how we identify, because way back during Reconstruction, the Daughters of the Confederate, that organization wanted to make their history pretty about how they did us. And they made a pact to ensure that their barbaric, animalistic behaviors would never come forth. And then they recognized that because of all of the legislation, the 3.5 pieces of legislation that is at Congress.gov, because all that legislation was not a bill. And if we understand the difference between a bill and legislation, a bill is a proposal. Legislation is something that has been approved. Now we have legislation in our behalf with protections in our behalf that has been passed, that's on the books, that has never been enacted. Now, the Daughters of the Confederacy, they realized that, but they wanted their history to be pictured a different way, and they wanted us to never know our history. Therefore, they set forth as the dominant society by changing our identities so that we would never learn about our true protections that we receive under the legislative record and the historical record as it relates to the United States of America. As it relates to that, our identity was freedmen and is freedmen. And no, we are not the descendants of the freedmen. We are the freedmen. When a Nigerian or anyone else comes here, they don't say, I'm a descendant of a Nigerian. They are Nigerian. We are Nigerian. So we have to understand that over all of these years, they have purposely continued to perpetuate, ensuring that they constantly change our recognition or our identity here, so that we have gotten to a point where no one even knows who the U.S. freedmen are. It's some type of fantasy in someone's head, according to people. But then something was birthed that was beautiful for us, and it was called the internet. It was no longer the encyclopedias. It was no longer hearsay. The internet was born, and the internet became a gateway to a real window of your history. It became the primary tool for your real freedom fight, your real justice claim, and your real order of how you can get reparations. Because the internet birthed forth all of the hidden records that we could have never found. They all of a sudden popped up on the internet. People started uploading records that we thought were lost. We're walking around saying, oh, we can never find our history. No, your history was always there. It was just hidden.
In
So
plain sight. In plain sight, it was hidden.
In plain sight. In plain sight.
Oh, go ahead. I'm so sorry, Black Diamond. I'm so excited every time I hear you. Every time I hear you explain, every time I hear you and Ted Hayes and Shirley Huzar, even be the power, always bringing up Freedman. I'm so excited because what you're experiencing, family, is an evolution back to who we are. Who we are. You can't go to the government and make a claim for BIPOC, minority, African American, Negro, colored, mulatto, ADOS, ADOTS, B1, FBA. The only claim you got coming through this government is as a freedman.
Exactly. And we need to recognize that, because here's the idea, family. What happens is, because we continue to cozy up and we continue to embrace these new identities every however many years, they determine that they want to keep washing us out, because the more and more they keep switching our identity, the further and further our history falls into a black hole of non-existence. So as we continue to embrace it, it is detrimental to our ability to really position ourselves for what we are saying we want.
It makes it easier to replace us.
Exactly. And then what they have now done to all of us, none of us are exempt from this sickness. They have convinced us to fight for identities that we have now embraced and cozied up to, and we are almost in love with these terms now, that when someone calls us something other than Black or African American, we get upset. We want to position ourselves mentally to surrender all of those terms now. We no longer will co-sign to any of those terms, because as we grow in our education and our understanding, we now realize, wait a minute, that was the okie doke being pulled on us. So now we're saying we're freedmen, right?
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Wait, Shauna Kim says, if the ancestors ain't speaking through you right now, and she says, rep says the reassignments were to confuse us.
Amen to that one. Amen. Amen. That's exactly what they were doing. They were confusing us. And see,
I got one more. The more terms we adopt, the more we drown under an identity crisis and whitewash.
Amen. And see, now that we're saying, guess what? All the Kamala Harrises, the Kamala Harris, all of the Barack Obamas, we're not fighting you to argue with you about blackness. Because you know what? You are exactly that. Thank you. Because you are helping my fight. See, because I'm not black. I'm Freedman.
Come on,
I'm not black.
Come
on.
Why
am I fighting and throwing rocks and being and we're screaming how and saying, no. See, you're not black. We done taken it to a second power level black because we want to hold on to that mess. No, I'm not black. I'm not red. I'm not green. I'm Freedman, God. Step to it and recognize who you are. Because once we recognize that, then we can really separate our group. See, when it comes to this immigration situation again, we don't have any hate in our hearts for Black immigrants or any other immigrant alike. But what we recognize is that when Black immigrants come here, they are Black. Why are we arguing with them saying that they're not? They are as Black as what the United States wants to define them as, and we don't give a flying crap. Why? Because we're freedmen. So let go of that. Deprogram yourself. Allow yourself to leave that loyalty behind. They bank on us staying loyal to anything blindly. But your education is now here. And those records are not coming from me. These words are not coming from Sister Angela. These words are coming from your historical record from your ancestors. They are telling us to wake up and to gate up and to let go of all that we have now allowed ourselves to embrace and cozy up to. And first, to win this fight, you got to recognize who you are. We are your ancestors, and we have now made you see who you are. So if you want to win the fight the way we won the fight when it came to getting out of slavery, when everyone said it was never going to happen, God dang it, wake up.
It's just right. I don't mean to be a crybaby with a cracked up voice. I'm trying to go to my lower register because Michelle A is just too much. I can't stand it. I want to read you some of the comments. Let's see here. Reparations says, man, y'all better speak. She says, come through, Diamond. Mr. D's News says, tell it. Brian C. Johnson says, Black has become too ambiguous at this point. It's about as confusing as the mystical brown people. And let me help you with something, family. That is by design. These Democrats are hell-bent on our ethno-genocide. Why is that, family? Because they are the Dixiecrats. And just like our ancestors had the audacity to change from Republican to Democrat when the Republicans would not endorse civil rights for freedmen. We've got to grow a backbone and weaponize this vote before their mission is accomplished. We'll get to a little bit of that as we get further along in this segment. Back to you, Black Diamond.
Thank you. So now when we think about it, right, everyone wants to always remind us of our ancestors that we're to be recognizing today. He is our ancestor. But please don't get our good Dr. Martin Luther King wrong. Our doctor said to us at that Poor People's Campaign, it's time to pivot. The same as our ancestors said to us back in the day when they realized, oh, hold it now. The Republicans have turned coat on us. It's time to pivot. We know that historically, Dr. Martin Luther King is synonymous for being known for being nonviolent, getting the work done in a way that did not cause any real uprising. But they took him out for one reason. Please understand, family, that brother said it's time to stop the civil rights era and start this new one. And it's a revolution. We're not trying to reform anything anymore. We are now going to completely revolutionize it. As I said earlier, we understand what a revolution means. It means the overthrowing of the government, the overthrowing of the entire system, not trying to work within it. Okay, and that's what we're here to do as reparationists now. We are no longer willing to conform. We are no longer willing to play the game of the respectable Negro policies. We need to recognize we have to revolutionize what is going on, because Dr. Martin Luther King had begun to switch over, and the government knew it. And what was even scarier to them was they recognized that he was just not inspiring and mobilizing the freedmen, but he had the ears of the poor whites and the poor immigrants who at that time were not accepted in as white. And that was an army that they were not willing to reckon with. And they took him away from us because of that. So we have to understand that he recognized, right, where we needed to go as far as allyship. Now, he never asked them for their allyship. He was much more smarter than that. What he did was he framed his words around their needs. He recognized their deprivations. He recognized their disparities. And he said, we are now going to build an alliance without them knowing that it's an alliance. And he spoke to their needs. Same thing we need to do today is what he did. And we can tie that now back to immigration. Because today, we are not the only ones that's being displaced because of immigration, mass immigration. There's another group, family, that's being displaced. Okay? Yes. And that group, historically, through their historical record, are the oppressed people that are white who believe that they have this white supremacy thing going on. So what happens to them based on history when they feel they are locked out? They lose their minds and they start to raise up, henceforth, the insurrection. They are being displaced. And they are recognizing that, whoa, the government is not listening to us. They are putting us at the bottom of the totem pole with those quote unquote Black people. And we're not having it. Now, in their historic record, unlike ours, they always resort to violence. They're not built like us. They're not fortitude like us. So what happens? We can accept being at the bottom. We know how to live here. We've been here too goddamn long. But guess what? They start running in front of cars, killing themselves. They start committing suicide. They start overdosing on drugs. And when none of that works, they decide, let's go and take over the White House. We're going to tear it down because that's their ancestor spirit. They lose their mind. They go crazy, and all they know is violence, right? But what we have to sit back as we eat our popcorn and watch them implode, we have to recognize, wait a minute, we have to do what our great leader, Dr. Martin Luther King, did. We have to be able to pivot, reach out to them in a way that they recognize. We have to help them recognize what we already know. You need us now because the government is turning on you with this mass immigration situation. The government is driving down in all the rural areas. They're driving down your wages and your common practice of the lower labor line jobs in your area. When you go there now, what do you see? So it's not just us. Now, are you ready to play nice in that playground?
Okay, I have to go back to me, Chalet. Sorry, guys. The lower register is shot for now. Okay, Brian says that white supremacy imploding on itself. That's absolutely what is happening. And the challenge with what Black Diamond has shared is that they somehow still believe being white makes them better and more privileged than us. So it's not as important that they recognize that they need us as much as it is for us to read the tea leaves and realize we need them. Stick a pin in it. Okay, the Black Diamond? Black Diamond?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to play another segment of MLK. If you can still hear, I'm not going to mute you. Let me cue that up for the audience, and we'll keep unpacking this. Don't lose your thought.
Okay.
Stick a pin in it. Hold on. Stand by, family.
Some very profound questions about our total society. In other words, they are saying that there must be a restructuring of the architecture of our society where values are concerned. And with this, I would agree with. So in the quest for integration, I think we can offer our whole nation something, because there are three evils in our nation. It's not only racism, but economic exploitation and poverty would be one, and then militarism. And I think in a sense, and in a very real sense, these three are tied inextricably together, and we aren't going to get rid of one without getting rid of the other.
When you stood on the Lincoln Memorial that day in August '63, and you said, "I had a dream," did that dream envision that you could see a war in Asia preventing the federal government doing for the Negroes, preventing the society doing for the Negroes, that which you think had to be done?
No, I didn't envision that then. I must confess that that period was a great period of hope for me. And I'm sure for many others all across the nation, many of the Negroes who had about lost hope, saw a solid decade of progress in the South. And in 1954, which was, 64, 1963, 9 years after the Supreme Court's decision to be in the March on Washington, meant a great deal. It was a high moment, a great watershed moment. But I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments. And I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation.
Dr. King, even if there had not been a war in Asia, would you still not have had this nightmare insofar as the Negro movement for equality then touched on two things that the white community holds sacred: their children and their property?
Oh, I have no doubt that we would have encountered great difficulties, great problems of resistance if the war had not been in existence. So that I'm not going to say that all of our problems will be solved if the war in Vietnam is ended. But I do say that the war makes it infinitely more difficult to deal with these problems. When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. I noticed the other day, some weeks ago, a Negro was shot down in Chicago, and it was a clear case of police brutality. That was on page 30 of the paper, but on page 1 at the top was 780 Viet Cong killed. That is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction, and it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence. And it strengthened the military-industrial complex of our country, and it's made our job much more difficult, because I think we can go along with some programs, if we didn't have this war on our hands, that would cause people to adjust to new developments, just as they did in the South. They said they'd never ride the bus with us, blood would flow in the streets, they wouldn't go to school, and all of these things. But when people came to see that they had to do it because the law insisted, they finally adjusted. And I think white people all over this country will adjust once the nation makes it clear that in schools and housing, we've got to learn to live together as brothers. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. It didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. Now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something.
Powerful.
Hey, NBC News viewers.
Powerful. Powerful. Let me read a couple of the comments. Welcome to the live family. You got me, Chalet, today. It is what it is. The show must go on. So let me welcome Lone Chopsticks. He says, if we could turn back the hands of time, ... But now we know better. Brian says, the police serve as a branch of domestic militarism to subdue the already resource-stricken neighborhoods that many of our people are tethered to over generations. And that's to my point. And don't lose your thought, Black Diamond. This is to my point. This is why identifying as Black, like the immigrants, identifying as African American, like Barack Obama, is problematic. I have shared with many of you that the Black immigrants are 1,000 times more wealthy than Freedman Black. And so this government is very invested in flattening Blackness to mask its failure. And it's having legislated us to the bottom of the Titanic as the anchor of capitalism. And so this is why it's so rich on the celebration of Dr. King that my illustrious esteemed guest, Black Diamond, is here to unpack it for you and help you to understand that it's taken 500 years to understand the tricks of the devil. And it is up to us individually to put the trick and the puckery down and say it loud, I'm Freedman proud. Do you understand what I'm telling you, family? I know you get it. Let's see a couple more comments, then we'll go back to Black Diamond. Herb Saint says Black people hold their children sacred too. LOL, these racists is something. Hopefully the interviewer burns in Hades. Okay. Let's see here. The Brian says the Vietnamese War served as the perfect excuse for America to ignore, dismiss the second phase of the civil rights movement. All that only to lose. Listen, Brian, you hit on something here, because look at the excuses they're using right now. They got refugees that they're giving away our reparations to. They've got immigrants, illegal and legal, that they're giving our reparations to. If you listen to Saturday's show, you'll hear me and Shirley Huzar on Black Diamond's show talking about the Freedman Bank Forum, where they are literally giving money to minorities and people of color and BIPOC and Native American Indians who've already been enriched $20 billion. More of our reparations. Black Diamond, could you tell them the billions they're pouring into these other groups in the name of the Freedman's Bank?
So as far let's just touch on the Freedman's Bank Forum a little, and let's just touch on the clip that you played with the Hispanic banker. I think his name was Jose Patachro or something like that. If we just take a moment to step back and kind of digest this man's way of how he came through that whole forum. He came through that forum. He came to, first of all, that forum with one intent, which was to speak directly to his group. Rather, his group was specifically Hispanic, Latinx, or whatever else. What we do know is it wasn't this group. It wasn't the Freedman group, okay? He made it clear that he wanted us to understand, you all are so non-relevant. I want you to understand this. There's an additional 136 other ethnicities rolled up in what I identify as my group. And when we came here, we come here with the intent to take everything from you. And unlike you all who want to play respectable politics, who want to play let's get along party games, no, we're here to tell you we are not waiting like you all. I guess you all haven't figured that out. See, I've only been here for 21 years is what he told us. And in that 21 years, I've been able to amass for my group, at current day when he was speaking, he said they had $700 million in assets. And because of the Freedmen's Bureau or the Freedmen's Bank Forum, he was going to get an additional $100 million. Not only that, but he also let you know, if you read through the lines, he let us know that we've been paying attention to where you all are. Because, see, you all are easy to overtake. Why? Because you all lack, in their vision, you all lack the wherewithal to say, I'm not playing this respectable Negro politics anymore. So what we're going to do is come into the southern states, and we're going to now seat ourselves. Now, we've been there, but we've been kind of quiet. You see, we've been setting up banks and credit unions, and we've been locking you all out. We don't even want you in our banks. We don't even try to accommodate you via English to make sure you understand you have no place here. But then he went so far as to let us know, now that we've pretty much accomplished that goal of making sure that we've created our economic vehicle via our businesses that we set up in the southern states. And then he, for our humor, let us know what states he was referring to. Then he said, and now that's what we're about to do. We're about to buy up your neighborhoods. See, we've been doing small home mortgages, but now we're about to go on a mass level. And so for all of you people, and now he's talking about the dominant society, for all of you all who wanted to reject us when it came to the South, because you wanted to basically keep the quote unquote freedmen in the South because you thought their economy was stronger because we were illegal and undocumented. Now all of you all are caping for us. If that wasn't a blatant slap in the face when it came to us at a forum in your ancestors' names. In your ancestors' names. Now, let's just slow down for a second. I want to share something with your audience, Angela.
Take your time, Black Diamond, take your time.
We have to ask ourselves, we know, most of us, at least we have some degree of understanding as it relates to the Spanish history when it comes to the United States. But let's kind of unpack that a little bit to see why he was so comfortable and in my opinion, so cocky when it came to letting us know, if you read through the lines of what he was saying, why he was so confident and cocky in the way he spoke at a forum in my ancestors' names, right? So I went and I did a little bit of history. There was an agreement that the United States government entered with Mexico. And this goes back to, Angela, your clip that you just played with Dr. King saying how at one time we were enjoying a little bit of economic inclusion. Then something happened where we got locked out. And we went back to that bare necessity, struggling. We were at the end of the labor line, right? And it was during the Vietnam War. And you would think that during that war, our employment should have increased. We should have moved up in that labor line because we were at war and they needed laborers. But no, see, the Mexican government, unlike Freedman, the Mexicans have a separate government. When people say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, boots that we've never had, straps that we don't even know what that means because we never had boots to even know what a strap looked like. Yeah, when they say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like we did, when these immigrants say, like we did, right? They act like they did something phenomenal. They act like they did something that we should have done, but we were just too lazy to do it. So let's kind of unpack what really happened during that era. So August of 1942, the United States entered an agreement with the Mexican government. They signed an agreement with the Mexicans for farm labor, and other laborers' work. This agreement was called, and I'm not Spanish speaking, so forgive me if I say it wrong, the Bracero program. The Bracero program, okay? Now, what was the Bracero program and how long did it last? Well, this program lasted from 1942 to 1964, right? From 19 to 1964. Now, let's see, how did this impact us? Well, one, this program was about the Mexican immigrant being allowed to come in here. Let me see. The Mexican government, so let me back up a little bit, I'm sorry. This was about the United States government working out a deal with the Mexican government to allow undocumented immigrants to come into the country for specific farm labor jobs that were at that time largely held by us, right? Now, in 1964, the United States realized, you know what, we're starting yet again. We're now in this civil rights era. We're starting to face yet again another possible race war internally with our illegal, undocumented people because they are pushing the freedmen at the end of the line again, right? So the United States said, okay, let's cancel it. Mind you, they entered this agreement with the Mexican government. The freedmen have no government because our government is the United States government. So when the United States decided, let's end that. Let's end this agreement. What did the Mexican government do? The Mexican government insisted on renewing the program. The United States said no. The United States government was not interested because migrant laborers continued to arrive without papers and outside of the negotiated agreements. So you would think, because the United States was so powerful, that they would be able to say, no, back out, we're done, take your folks, go about your business. I mean, after all, the Mexican government was not that powerful, right? But no, what happens? What do we see happen? Because again, they act like they did something so phenomenal because we didn't do it, as though we had the necessary boost like they had. See, their boost is their government. We didn't have a government. We don't have a government that really supports us. So what did their government do? In lieu of America saying, hell no, go about your business. The Mexican government thus began the era of the undocumented migrant by irregular migrants who worked temporarily under the threat of deportation. The Mexican government side was a no man's land where criminals and human traffickers just operated freely. So what the Mexican government decided to do was say, okay, fine, you're not going to let them in legally. We're just going to now start the beginning of an influx of undocumented illegals. And they will then say, okay, if you go there, you run the risk of being looked at as a criminal and then being deported if you're there long enough and set up your life. Now, the United States government at that time could have said, you know what, we have a strong labor force already here. It's the Freedmen. And we want to now include them economically because, I mean, after all, our ancestors, Dr. Martin Luther King, at this point, had been in this fight for approximately 12 years, right? But no, they didn't. They pretended like, oh my God, what's happening? We don't know where all of these undocumented illegal people are coming, but yet we can't really deport them because, yeah, we like that lower line cheap labor. Point to all that was to let us understand that when Dr. Martin Luther King was talking about how we went through that period that we were really basically, again, locked out, coming out of Reconstruction and going into the Civil Rights era, was because of the influx of the immigration. And he did not want to point blank say immigration and how it was affecting us at that time, which is why he created the Poor People's Campaign. Right, so when we look at that, what we see is when the Mexicans and any other immigrant wants to brag or say to us, you all need to do more. I mean, you're in the country that affords you all this opportunity. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Tell them to give us their government, and maybe we can do that because our government hasn't supplied that boot for us. That's the reality. They're not doing anything outside of what we could have done. And we should have been able to do had we had the boost. And the boost would have been a government, which is why we have to push back on the Pan-African mess, right? Because if the Pan-African theory was real, we should be able to turn to the quote-unquote motherland and ask for those boots. We should be able to ask them for the boot, which is their government, so that we can then come over here like the Black continental African comes over here and gets that support and that backing.
To your point, Black Diamond, the median income for Africans who sold us into slavery is practically $70,000. Our median national income as freedmen is 30,000 and less.
And it's not because they're more determined. It's not because they're more educated. It's not because of anything other than that they have an agreement with our government to make sure that they get lifted up over us under the pretense first as an immigrant and then second Black, so they can access everything that we have fought for. And then they turn around and say, oh, see what we're doing? We have the same quote unquote skin color that you have, but they're not blocking us. You're right, because see, you have a government and your government is your boots and your agreement with the United States government are your straps. Reality check. We don't have the boots, and every time we humbly get a boot or get boots, when we find that we have said, you know what, we're going to literally sit here, we're going to find a damn cow, we're going to kill the cow, we're going to take the leather, and we're going to make our own boot. Guess what those dominant society people did? They said, oh, hell no, they got the boot. Let's go burn it. We got to tear it down. We got to terrorize them. Hence Reconstruction. Hence the reason why the Daughters of the Confederacy decided to oppress their true nature, their true reality, and their true history of how violent and how barbaric they are. Because every time we had to find a cow to create our own boots, to then create our straps, which was our businesses, they took them, they burned them down, and it has historically continued to happen. It's just now a little bit more quieter. Because see, now they use laws to do exactly that, to burn down our communities, to burn down our spirit, to burn down our fights. And then when we still weathered that, what did they do? They said the way we can really weaken them is to help them implode within themselves by constantly regurgitating new and different identities for them.
Wait, and they're doing all this with our reparations.
With our reparations. And they want to sit here and prance around in front of us like they're doing something. I promise you, if any of them were faced with the same level of oppression within their own society that they were born and raised in, that they built, they would not be able to weather the way we have. But we have to recognize simply is, when we create our boots this time, we have to be smarter, right? We have to not share it all. We have to not be flamboyant. We have to recognize first that immigration is all a part of our reclassification here. First. That is the first thing. Immigration is tied to your reclassification, because the more they reclassified us, the more flattened we became. The more we were put in a blender and blended together with the migrants or the immigrants or the refugees. Call it what you want. What it did was wash out your true identity and blended you in and made you look like you were no one. You were just some flat people who just didn't want to do anything. That was a part of the immigration gimmick for us. In addition to them constantly changing our identity so that we would no longer even think about or even know that there was a such thing called the United States Freedmen. And that there was a such thing called legislation that is still on the books. These people were so comfortable with assuming that we were going to remain in ignorance because of them hiding the information from us. They didn't even bother to remove it. How disrespectful is that to us? But that's okay. We want to say thank you for not removing it, because it's uncovered now. And we're here now. And we ain't going no goddamn where. And you can best believe this. We ain't adhering to any of your identities as it relates to us. You don't get to do that anymore. See, our ancestors have woken us up. Our ancestors have made us realize the tool has been put forth in front of you. What are you going to do with it now? Stop giving your blind loyalty to any classification, any identity that is contrary to being recognized as a freedman, because that legislation is there for you. We're talking about becoming a protected class. You were already a protected class. The United States government, the Army was assigned to protect you, Mr. and Mrs. Freedman. Oh, what, you didn't know those things? You were already protected. All the things that we are fighting for, that we're trying to recreate, they're there. What we need to do is uncover it more. What we need to do is figure out which ones of those pieces of legislation should we now force to be enacted. The key word, enacted. We don't have to get it legislated anymore. We don't have to advocate for the bills anymore. They're already there.
Come on, Black Diamond, come
They're
on.
already there. So once we first, again, shed this propaganda that has been placed in our heads to accept their identities of us, that's the biggest fight we have right now internally in our community, is recognizing everyone who wants to claim Black, please let them stop talking about you're not Black. Stop all of that. You are as Black as you want to be, honey. If it works for you, it works for me, because I'm not Black. My ancestor that you're celebrating today was in no way, shape, or form Black. I ain't never seen him Black. He was a freedman. So when we do that, that's the first way that we can start to begin to really move forward and move this boulder out of our way. Out of our way. And it's okay if within your households, you can identify as Negro if you're comfortable with that. You can identify as Black. But when you come out here in the public's eye, we need to stand on one accord. And that accord is not about any personal group out here or your personal feelings about any group out here. It's about your ancestors who died for you. It's about your ancestors who fought through slavery, fought through Reconstruction, fought through all the things that we keep regurgitating. They said, you are who you are, and you are a freed man and a freed woman, and you are freed children. Period. They didn't say you're going to be a descendant of mine. So call yourself a descendant. They didn't say recreate the will. They want you to rise up. They want you to stand in your power now. They want us to stop acting foolish and stop fighting each other over simpleness about an identity, because we want to keep on cuddling up to what the United States wants to do to us, which is wash out our own memory and our own self-pride and our own self-strength of who our ancestors were, which is who we're celebrating today, our freedman ancestor. Let's go get that done first within our communities. Then we can attack all of this immigration issue. We no longer have to keep talking about Kamala isn't Black, Obama isn't Black, or Black immigrants aren't Black. When we really think about it now that we are in a deeper understanding, it's ignorant of us to ever argue with them about them not being Black. Who are we to define if they're Black or not? And why do we care? Do we argue with Hispanics and say, oh no, you're not Latinx, you're Ecuadorian? Who gives a crap? Because you ain't me. You ain't me, so why do I care if you're Black? Because I'm a freedman. So you can be Black until the day you die, honey, because I'm going to be freedman till the day I die. You know why? Because that's my ancestor that you're celebrating today. You know why? Because he knew who he was when it comes to that time and that era. We thought we knew who we were until the internet was born, until the information was uncovered. Now we have to be like our ancestors and be mentally ready to pivot and say, we have now come into real knowledge, as they did when it came to their loyalty to the Republican Party of that day. And they pivoted over to the Democratic Party. And who in heaven's name would have ever thought that our ancestors would have had the insight to know that the very people who enslaved them and who were at one time fighting to keep them enslaved, we would then pivot to them and give them our support, or at least a party name. But they were insightful enough to know that. And they are telling us today, it is time for us to become more insightful, stop the foolishness, and step into the spirit and the energy of the man we're celebrating today. He is your ancestor, and he is a freedman, and he descends from powerful, powerful other freedmen. They weren't arguing about simple things. When they came out of Reconstruction, they knew what they needed. They stated what they needed. They weren't arguing about these small, simple-minded things about who likes who and who doesn't want this, that, and the third. They understood we need to get out of slavery first. They understood we need to get through Jim Crow. We need housing. We need food. We need jobs. We need respect within our community for each other. And they handle their business. And I'm asking everyone that can hear my voice now, stand up. Stand on your ancestors' shoulders. Stand in their shoes and recognize who you are. And let's go uncover that legislation and let's go make them enacted under the title Freedman. And we're going to be okay.
Now, if you want to help me and Black Diamond uncover the treasure trove that is Freedman's, you must Gmail me at thereperspect@gmail. I'm going to type it for you. thereperspect@gmail. We got work to do, family. I pray that this time together is inciting you to pick up a brick. What Black Diamond has imparted, it's so rich. The hair is literally standing up on my arms. I have never been prouder to be Freedman because of her very succinct, very passionate expression on this broadcast today. Black Diamond, I want you to know that you're going to be able to see it when you rewatch the broadcast, because I've not been able to read all of the comments with this voice. It's getting on my nerves, so I'm sure it's getting on yours. But the show must go on. You'll be able to see, Black Diamond, when you watch this over, the love and the glowing commendations for your voice in this space this afternoon. I thank you so very much. I'm almost done with you, but I need just a little more, just a little bit more before I pray us out. Now, you talked about why it's important. First of all, let me back up. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had a strategy when he formed the Poor People's Campaign. It wasn't about white folks. It was about how do I grow our numbers to weaponize their poverty for our come up. Okay? And so you and I have talked about strategy because this government, through its legislation and all other crap ways, it has allowed whites to destroy everything we build, has tethered us to the bottom of the Titanic as the anchor of its capitalism. So since we've been neutralized economically, they're lying to us about our actual numbers. Okay, Marcel Dixon, who is running to unseat Clyburn in District 6, South Carolina, shared that on the live we did together. Go through the archives and watch that. It was rich. That the census has understated our numbers by at least 12 to 20 million. He claims, and I've not researched it, that we're more like 65 million, which makes us still the largest group in the country, the second largest. And it is our job to weaponize the only thing we've got left. That is the power of our vote. And so I was pushing for the longest a red top and a blue Congress because I understand that a trifecta of either party is the Freedman death knell. Well, I had to go and pray about that strategy as I watch the Democrats get this country away to our greatest threat, immigrants. So I had to go into the prayer closet and figure out what strategy will serve Freedman. Because everybody's got a strategy, even the immigrants. When they're making less than $50,000, they vote Democrat, which is why you see Biden be perfectly okay with the ACLU making millionaires of illegals. They need poor illegals who are grateful to be in the country for that vote. All of our reparations that they're giving away to the immigrants is to pay for the vote. So what I'm telling you is that we must come up with our own strategy. I have prayed, and this is it. Red top and a closed border Congress.
And that's the way it should be. Let me repeat that. You said a red top and a closed border Congress. Understand, our brother Marcel, we should push the button for him. We should push the button for him because we need to unseat Clyburn.
Wait. Black Diamond, there's a midterm strategy which includes closed border candidates and Marcel Dixon.
That's right.
Okay, so there's two strategies we're talking here, family. I'm rolling out two strategies. I'm rolling out the midterm and I'm rolling out the general. Could you please unpack that for me, Black Diamond?
This is a very simple concept. We need to vote in our interest. And, you know, we've been saying this for a while. We've been saying we need to vote in our interest. We need to vote in our interest. But most of the time, because the Republicans are still ignoring us, right? Most of the time, what we call in our interest seems to be constantly pushing the blue button, right? Because the blue button seems to keep running their mouths about what they are going to do for us just to capture our vote. So we have to become more strategic. And what does it mean when we say vote in our interest? Here's your answer. As what Angela just said. For our brother, Marcel, we are willing to push that blue button for only Marcel. For only Marcel.
Tell them why, Black Diamond. Okay. Tell them why.
Because we will never walk away from having one of our freedmen down to the core, our reparationists down to the core, getting to Congress.
But we've got other reparationists running. But please tell them why Marcel, of all the candidates running, is our golden goose. Why that empowers us. Could you just go a little further?
Remember our conversation, and I have to remember the full conversation of where you're trying to lead to.
Okay, let me just say it.
Yeah.
It is imperative, family, that we vet every one of these people who are claiming to be reparationists. You can't just go to the polls and vote because they say they're reparationists.
Right.
Many of them are working against our own interest.
Exactly.
And they're not in districts where they can even have a snowball chance in running on reparations. What we've got in Marcel is not just someone who has a real shot. He's been in the reparations movement since we formed around 2019. And he has thrown his hat in the ring as a full-chested, hard-working reparationist who has 57% of the black vote in Clyburne's district.
Exactly.
Now, the only way we can really send a message to the Democrats is to elect closed border candidates and Marcel Dixon to unseat the House whip. I don't know what he is, but he has got to go.
So when we look at it, I really hope that the audience is getting what you're saying, that we are supporting Marcel because he has a proven record, right? We are not going to support any candidate that just says reparations out their mouth. Make them, vet them, make them stand true to everyone that can hear us. Make them prove to you that they are real reparationists. We are not a trending item, which is what reparations has now become. We have to be stronger. We have to be more strategic. We have to be more analytical when we are throwing out support behind someone. We're not going to allow people to say, I'm for reparations. We're not going to allow people to just throw a black agenda up on their websites. You got to prove to me that you're a real reparationist. How do I prove that to you? Show me your historical record before you started speaking reparations. Where were you at in my community? What legislation have you championed before throwing in your hat? What is your political record thus far, period? How long have you been in politics? When we start asking real questions to these quote unquote reparationist candidates, what you find is they have nothing vested in you other than doing you the way the Democratic Party has always done us. They're banking on your blind loyalty. And we're asking you all as our family to wake up. We're asking you to recognize who a real reparationist candidate is. And once we recognize that, we will throw the support behind them, especially after we vet it and we realize that they really do have a chance of winning based on their percentages of the Freedman vote in that particular area. That's one. Secondly, when it comes to us voting in our interest, we have to recognize at every election, whether it's midterm or presidential, what are the biggest threats when it comes to our community? And we then have to be, again, like our ancestors. If that means pivoting and maybe even voting what might not be in our best interest, which means we might have 2 more additional years of hell. Well, hell, we've been through 400 plus of them. So 2 more ain't going to kill nobody here.
And guess what, Black Diamond? Guess what? Hold your thought. The only people that suffer when the Democrats are in control are Freedmen. When Trump was in office, he kept away the immigrants. He built a wall. The immigration is the albatross around the Freedman neck, not the necks of white folks who killed and stole all of the reparations built on the backs of the heinous chattel slavery that put our ancestors in the ground. You see the chart up right now. We are on the bottom in every metric. So we have got to stop signing up and voting blue, no matter damn who, to our peril.
But we have to stop it, right? But what we have to recognize is we can't look specifically for what we were before being trained to look for. Oh, if they don't have a specific agenda that speaks directly to us, then we're not going to vote for them. Oh, if they don't have Freedman on it, we're not going to vote for them, because that's not a realistic reality right now of what this party is presenting to us. What we have to do is come together as a group and start to say, what is our biggest threat outside of us getting a specific agenda? What is our biggest threat? And that is immigration.
Immigration is our biggest
threat. That is. That's the poor, rural, white people's biggest threat as well. So we have to go through 2 more years of hell, but we turn out every anti-immigrant candidate into Congress. At least we can start again positioning ourselves to be included economically here. Immigration is a detriment to the Freedman community. It doesn't have to be spelled out in the black agenda. It doesn't have to say reparations. And you don't have to look for a specific piece of legislation that says Freedman. But you have to know what's your biggest threat to you and your family and our community. And right now, that biggest threat is immigration.
Period.
Every aspect of it.
And let me jump in real quick. Let me help you understand something, family. What is the difference between the Republicans not offering a Freedman agenda and reparations versus the Democrats who promise you the stars and the moon, and all you've got is more oppression by the immigrant class, who are our new white oppressors, who are taking over in every branch of government and trying to tell us to forget about slavery? Do you think, like Dr. Claude Anderson said, these immigrants, when they take the country over, as they intend, will give us the reparations we are long overdue? So what's the difference between the Democrats promising you to use you like a mule, to get you to the polls, to push the blue button? What is the difference between them and the Republicans? So we are telling you reparations ain't coming in the next election cycle, but we have an opportunity while we still hold the majority in this country to send a strong message to the Democrats. It's reparations, or you will never see the top of the ticket ever again in your life. As long as we have breath.
Please know this. Your reparations is never going to come if immigration keeps happening. Why? Because the Democrats have given all your reparations to them. They're continuing to do it. And we are implicit in that because we keep pushing that blue button. I'm not professing should you be Democratic or Republican. I don't give a rat's butt either one, because neither one of them are benefiting my community. What I'm saying to you right now is we need to be smarter at identifying the imminent threats when it comes to the legislation that is being rolled out. It's just like the Freedman's information. It was sitting in our faces all the time, but we chose to look away and seek out other things. Immigration is the biggest boulder sitting in our face right now. If you believe we're going to get reparations, then you best understand there will be no reparations coming to any of us as long as immigration continues at the pace it's going right now. Our ancestor, who we are celebrating today, recognized that. And he recognized that he didn't have the full support of the Freedman community. He was intuitive enough to say to himself, we need to go after the poor, rural, white man and woman, because they are being impacted. And that's the same thing we need to do. We need to look at what they're thinking about and what they are talking about, because they are experiencing the impact of illegal immigration. We're not calling them documented citizens, undocumented citizens. They're not citizens. Until I get a title of citizen here and full citizenship, ain't nobody else getting that one. Ain't nobody giving them anything.
Let me
we need to shut it down.
Absolutely. Black Diamond, I was rich, but I gotta address a couple things that I see happening here. First of all, Sandra Del Rey, 360, thank you for joining the live. She asked that we re-explain the strategy for Congress. Please do that.
The strategy for Congress is to push the button for Marcel and then to vote in anyone who is anti-immigrant.
Or
and
another term for that is closed.
Okay,
closed border. You want your
we want to close the borders, family. We want any candidate, red or blue, purple, green, yellow, I don't care. We need them to close the darn borders, period. It is the most biggest intimate threat in the Freedmen's community. And it's the biggest reparations drain when it comes to us, because they are giving the illegal immigrant all of your reparations. So as long as we allow those borders to remain open, please know, every hour, minute, and second that they are open, that's your reparations further and further away from you. Get activated. Recognize what is our overall threat. We're not here to argue about all the other things that we have to deal with within our community. We have to recognize how the government is moving against us and how they are weaponizing immigration against the Freedman community. So that means we need to send a full-throated, serious candidate like Marcel to Congress. And that is all we are ordered to do, is to put our people there. And then the second step to our strategy is close border candidates. Don't look at the blue or the red. Look at, are they saying to close these freaking borders? If they're saying that, say yes, period. And if after the wash goes out, if it's all red, so freaking be it. Remember this. Don't be afraid. Don't say, oh my God, we put all red people in there. Remember your ancestors. And remember that they recognize it's time to pivot. And if it means we go through 2 years of hardship, if our ancestors did it and got through it, so will we. Stand on your ancestors' strength, their commitment to moving us forward. Stop being afraid. We have been here before and we got through it. They are here with us now. And it is time for us to recognize and hear their message and move forward. There's no more game playing of being scared anymore. Know who you are first. Stand on it. Stop arguing about what the agenda looks like and recognize what the national agenda here in the United States against your people looks like. And that is immigration. Close those borders.
Okay, let me jump in real quick. I want Miss Lady 309, thank you for being here. She says, usually they have already implemented policies before it's time to vote. And then I want you to address that. And I want you to address Mr. I'm not a supporter of neither party. They have never done anything for Black Americans. Could you please explain why Freedman cannot afford to stay home this election cycle, nor can they afford to throw away their party on third? Can you please?
As far as Freedman staying home, it's detrimental. Again, we need to send a resounding message to the party of choice for us right now, because we blindly have loyalty. Let's just be honest. Our party of choice is Democrat. Now, when we talk about the Democratic and Biden's polls being low, his polls are in the toilet. That's not to be argued. But guess what? Out of the polls out of the groups that are in the bottom, guess who has the highest bottom level? Us. We are the ones that are still polling with the highest percentage of approval for him. Although it's still low, it's still the highest, right? That speaks to us. That speaks to us. Again, there's no loyalty here to any party. Party is not even a conversation anymore. There's no conversation about party. It should be dead. What the conversation should be about is us looking at the federal agenda. recognizing that if there's legislation that is already there, let's go back to Trump. Trump didn't give a rat's tail what was already there. When he got there, he did what he wanted to do. You can best believe that the poor whites and the Republicans are sick of immigration. Now, all of them recognize one thing: cheap labor benefits them. But here's the thing. Along with the poor whites and the rest of the dominant society here, one thing for sure that they don't want is to see the browning of America. They don't want that. I can care less about what it is they want unless it benefits the Freedman community. So right now, their selfishness, their white supremacist attitude happens to benefit the Freedmen's community. So guess what? That's my agenda.
Period.
That's my agenda, period.
Now, could you please address, if you guys, listen, if you stay home during the midterms, which you usually do, then we can get our closed border candidates represented. But you cannot stay home during the general. You absolutely have to show up. I want you to show up in both. And vote for Marcel Dixon as our only reparationist candidate that is worth his salt, that has been thoroughly vetted, that has stayed tried and true to Freedman from the door. Okay?
Exactly, yo. The only reason that we're really showing up at this midterm, family, is to put Marcel in Congress. Period.
And you must
that's the beginning and end of that one as to why we should not sit at home. We need him in Congress, right here in the D.C. area where I'm from. We need him sitting there. And we need to be the ones to ensure that he gets there. And understand, we all know we are at a new year. I want to say this in behalf of Marcel. We are in the new year. All of us are filing taxes. And in this way, if we're lucky and we qualify for earned income credit with all of the increased additional child tax credits and earned income credits, all of that increased, please don't forget Marcel. Please do not say, I don't have the money. I have to catch up on my bills. You didn't have this money until this new law was enacted. You can spare a couple of dollars to get this brother into Congress so that we can get rid of Clyburn and really put in someone who is really advocating, fighting for you, who has a proven record before it became a trending topic of reparations. This man was there. This man was confronting him. This man was about the business, and he has never let up. And he needs to be there. He has earned the respect of the Freedman community for us to be willing to, at minimum, if each one of us gave $1, we would increase his amount right now 40-fold. Support Marcel. And once we get him there, then we can begin to better vet real, sincere candidates who have a track record of being here, not someone who just popped up 5 months ago talking about, oh, I have a reparations platform, but I haven't gotten my website together. Oh, I have a reparations platform, but I've never done anything in the political arena. I don't know anything about the political arena, but hey, I got reparations on it. We have to do better. We will no longer allow, we have gated up. We will no longer allow people to make a fool of us and what we call ourselves being educated. And yet they are yet again capitalizing on what has always been done to us, making sure that they keep us in the mindset of thinking we know something. And all the while they're laughing all the way to the bank at our expense. That stops. That stops. Put Marcel in office. That's why you need to show up, period. When you do show up, don't be confused. Anyone outside of Marcel
has got to go.
You need to vote for closed borders. Stop please understand that is the biggest threat to the freedmen community and our advancement in this fight of reparations, immigration.
Wait. They keep coming up in here, fam. They keep spamming me. These immigrants are mad as hell. They look Arabic and shit in the way they writing. I keep blocking them, family. But they in here. And the fact that they in here, family, is a testament to how powerful this information is.
Exactly.
They don't want you to know that your justice claim is in that White House. And they don't want you fighting specifically for your own group. So they are shadow banning me. I need you to get this message out to everyone you know. Because let me help you understand. They are going to come for this video. This video, I can't tell you how long it's going to be up.
Well, let's make them even more upset. Before we close this conversation out, let's make them more upset. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to literally, in the physical form, I'm going to stand up and let them know you have never been the dreamers of my ancestor. The freedmen are the dreamers that my ancestors spoke of. Back up, get out of our way. We are here. My ancestor said he had a dream for us, and we are now coming for that dream. We are reclaiming, regardless of what the United States of America has given you a title as, it's mine, and I'm taking it back. On his day, please, everyone, say, we are the dreamers. That is Freedman's ancestor. And as of today, you will no longer be recognized as the dreamers. We reclaim it back. Now get out of our way, because come midterm, we're getting you out of our way. Close borders, period.
Close border candidates, spread the word. Make this video go viral. I can't thank you enough, Black Diamond. This has been rich. I thank you, the little Michelle voice I've got. I thank you, God, for even having Michelle in the building. Shout out to Michelle. And guess what, family? It's time to pray us out. You've got your marching orders if you want to get with Black Diamond. And I mean, I can't even run down how fierce this sister is. But she's Black Diamond for a reason. So if you want to get with the likes of her and me and get this money, you need to Gmail me at therecperspect@gmail.com. You need to donate to Marcel for Congress. MarcelForCongress.com. Aggregated dollars gets him a war chest. We don't need a whole bunch. We just need y'all to give up a Starbucks, a McDonald's. If everybody did that, the brother would be in Congress, where he has promised to grow 200 more just like him. Get involved, get a break, and if nothing else, get engaged and don't stay home and don't throw your vote away. Send the strongest message that you can through the weaponization of your vote while we still have that as an advantage. Remember, 87% of our electorate voted for the current administration, who's given us a Juneteenth holiday that we were already celebrating at a hip-hop festival while giving billions of dollars to the immigrants, refugees, and to line their own pockets. With that being said, family, Black Diamond said it best. Say it loud. I'm Freedman proud. over us. Wherever Freedman and its allies are, God truly is, because family, you are the face of God. Yes, you are. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Hey, she's back. And with that being said, family, know that I love you, Black. I love you so strong. Black Diamond, please hold on while I close them out. I love y'all so much. I'm glad and grateful that you came here and spent this time together. Stay tuned for my fire outro, family. We have arrived on the best holiday we got going in the year, that of the late, great Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King. This has been so rich. Our time together has been so rich. I hope it did as much for you as it's done for me. I believe we can fly now, family. I love you so much. Peace, love, and reparations. Fire in the motherfucking hole! Yes! 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 Come through, ancestors! Come through! Hold on, fam.